I just finished my first week with Old Comic Book Day, and I'm finding some interesting perspective changes that I thought was worthwhile sharing. Hi, this is James for Read More Comics. As I shared in the intro, I've been doing a lot of reflecting over what my collection is. I'm sorry, my dog is moving on the floor because she's a princess and she can. And as a part of this process, I have realized a couple different things about my collection. And I think it all goes down to moving my collection, like how I perceive it, from just something purely that I'm collecting and I'm archiving, like I'm managing, almost like a museum exhibit, to something that is a library that, yes, there are books here with value, and so I need to take care of those. I need to be mindful of that. But all of this is really about reading and about enjoying that. So it's about how I'm enjoying my collection. For my first week in Old Comic Book Day, OCBD, I read Batman 400, issue number 1 of Ed Brubaker's run on Captain America. John Burns, first. Now, he had some issues before this, but this is his first issue where he's doing the writing and the art. Fantastic Four 232. And then first issue of Silver Surfer Volume 3. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I want to kind of like share some of my experiences. So I'm going to transition to a desk up view when we talk about this. All right, so here we have Fantastic Four issue 233. As I shared, this was the first issue written by John Byrne, and he also did the art. And one thing that I realized as I began dipping my toe into Old Comic Book Day, going back and reading my older books that are part of my collection, and older is all perspective. Like it's not older and that it has to be a vintage copy. Like here we have a Bronze Age book. It's just something that isn't coming out on New Comic Book Day. One thing I realized was I wanted to take my time reading my older books. So I put a cap, and right now it's on 4, where I only have 4 Old Comic Book Day books in my read pile queued up for me. And I'm not reading more than 1 per day. On the very first day, I'm going to be honest, I wanted to kind of binge through that, and I'm pushing back on that that media consumption schedule that streaming services and even YouTube has reinforced, where we digest media in quick succession and we have no patience, we have no time to savor. And that's really what I wanted to do here. Now, what's helpful with this is that, and you can see this even just on these 2 pages. This is a Bronze Age book. It's just on the verge of modern age. I think it came out in 1985. No, I'm wrong. It's 1981. Is that right? Yep, 1981 right there. So 1981. So this is a Bronze Age comic book. And Mr. McGroovy has identified that older books are almost Shakespearean, definitely verbose. I mean, if we look at the amount of textual context, of thought bubbles, I can't remember in a modern comic book the last time I saw as many thought bubbles as we just see on these 2 pages, except for some dialogue up here and down here from Mr. Fantastic. Everything else is a thought bubble. I wanted to take time enjoying the ads because I thought, and this is something that's coming up. Sorry, my dog just moved into his bed underneath my desk. something that I am realizing as I'm reading these older comic books is that these are, and he's nudging the tripod, these are, let's move this a little bit. This is history right there. This is representing the culture and of the time. So one thing I noticed, like in this issue, this is Invisible Girl, not Invisible Woman. And the issue focuses on her entry point in this is she went out to do her hair. Of course she did, because that would be something that would be a part of the time. So I'm kind of savoring that. Now, I'm thinking as I move forward, I might add an additional book. So I have a book to read, one book every day, Monday through Friday, as a part of my morning read ritual. And I have a couple other titles lined up I'm considering. I think having a balance between Bronze Age titles, like I have here and like I have with Batman and Silver Surfer, with some modern age books, that might be kind of a palate cleanser. Though I am still working through my new comic book day pile, and to be candid with those, I'm binging through those. So I'll read multiple issues in a day or multiple successive issues if I want to. Here's a couple cool things. For $9, you can get a year's subscription to a comic book, right? That's pretty good. And did anybody actually subscribe to Grit? Because this is America's greatest family newspaper. I don't know anybody who did. I really enjoyed the art style and kind of the tactile sensation. The paper stock is different. And so because of the differences in paper stock and printing quality, we get some variations. Maybe it's not showing up here. I'm not seeing it. In how text shows up, sometimes it'll appear a little blotted. The paper stock is rougher, which is, I think, muting because of how I imagine, I'm not a scientist, but I imagine how it absorbs the inks in the printing process. It kind of mutes the colors. I thought this was interesting. And so I'm reading Ryan North's Fantastic Four run. And so here we have Invisible Woman. She's struggling for this, to squeeze this. I think it was was it a liquid or a gaseous? I think it was, let's see. It was a gaseous elemental. It was an air elemental, okay? So she's struggling right here, which I thought was really ironic because Ryan North just finished a run which basically set out that the Invisible Woman is the most powerful member of the Fantastic Four, hands down, like Galactus level threat. So I thought that was interesting. I love these ads where we have kind of, a one-page comic and they're selling something. I remember the Hostess ads. It did make me want to eat more Hostess treats. Missed the bullpen. So anyway, that was my experience this week with New Comic Book Day. I'm going to maintain what I'm doing for a couple weeks before I make any revisions because I want to be really intentional with that. I'm going to use that word a lot. And I want to temper the desire to binge through multiple comics. So I want to take this slow and savor what I'm reading about this. So I thought that was really insightful. And then another thing that's happening as I've been organizing, and this is something I've done for many years. I've alluded to this in other videos, so I don't want to rehash this. But as I organize my comic book collection, which is something I've done off and on almost every summer, it's like kind of this big push to reorganize and make sure everything's in the right place and kind of curate it along like issues, like topically or genre or something like that. This year, I think the big push has also helped me realize a couple things, that collecting just to complete a run, have that completionism, which is can be really obsessive as a collector motivation. Like I have felt that, and I realized that with I was actually Silver Surfer right here, not Volume 3, but I had this goal that I was going to collect every volume from Volume 2 on up, because those are easy to get. Those are achievable, where Volume 1 can be a little salty, and so I was going to hold off on that. And I've done that with some other runs. And with those other runs, coincidentally, it worked out because there's some really readable comics and stories in there. But as I began to call out my collection, what I found was that there were issues of this title of succeeding volumes that were actually really lame. The covers were gorgeous, but the story was atrocious, and that's why the volume might only go 12 issues or 5 issues or something like that. And so I'm like, well, why am I collecting it then? I don't even want to read it. I flipped through the comic and it was bad. So that's one epiphany I had, that I don't need to pursue completion of a particular run unless it has some other intrinsic value to me, like Batman does, for example. But I also, as I'm curating my collection, as I'm organizing it around like ideas, I found some other things stand out, and I want to kind of explore that with you. So here's one of my short boxes, and unlike some of the titles you can see over here with Captain America, or down there's a Star Wars box. This one's kind of a grab bag, and it's one of the few in my collection where it's truly just this assortment of books. Most of them I'm able to find some sort of theme. It could be a character, it could be a title, it could be a genre, or some other nuance that I'm collecting. With this right here, it just happens to be things that didn't fit anywhere else. And what I thought initially, you can see with Berserker and the indie comics, I thought this would be kind of an indie box, but I needed some space for other things. So we got like Batman Family right here that I'm working on, low-key working on. I'm not actively pursuing this. This might be something next year. It's just a really cool series. There's some interesting books here. Let's see. George Washington fighting the dynamic duo. This is the first appearance of Duella Dent, Joker's daughter. This is the issue where Robin and Batgirl get married, which is foreshadowing, 50 years later. Let's see, what other ones stand up? That's a pretty cool cover. That's about it, I guess. Okay, so I got Berserker. I want to point out a couple things without like running through the whole box. Okay, as I was organizing my books, I realized that there were kind of these focal points, these buckets that I could organize my books in that would help me avoid FOMO, fear of missing out. I'm not collecting because everybody else is getting this book. I'll give you an example. Right now, I've noticed a lot of creators really leaning into collecting Archie, and maybe they've always been doing that, but it seems like that is something that is more in the forefront of YouTube creators now. What was it, Dave Stevens? I'll correct it if it's not right down below. Dave Stevens last year and the year before, when that documentary came out, everybody was collecting Dave Stevens. So what I'm doing is I'm making sure that comic books fit in a bucket, and also, unless it's something that I have a greater passion for, I don't need to fill out the run. Okay, I'm not collecting everything. And I'll give you a couple examples. Like right here we have Berserker. I don't need every variant cover in Berserker. I'm not chasing that game anymore. That's something that, a foilie. I found myself doing with some of the Ghost Machine titles. It's like, oh, here's a second printing. I need that. I've never done this before, and I'm like, why am I doing that? That doesn't fulfill anything. It gives me like an endorphin spike for a moment, but it's not really making my collection any richer. Here's an exception. These are kind of like the director's cuts where you have annotations on it in 2 Berserker books. I don't know if I'm going to keep those yet. I also found that there were these niche, at least to me, buckets that I really enjoyed. Like, here's this weird intersection between DC comic book characters and Looney Tunes that DC turned out before the pandemic. This is the one that won the Eisner right there. These are really fun, so I'm keeping those. There are artists that I really enjoy. Frank Cho's one of those, and so I'm not collecting everything Frank Cho does, but he did this indie book called Fight Girls. It's only 5 issues, but he did the art and the writing. So I'm collecting that. And then he did the same back here with Shayna the She-Devil for Marvel. He did the art and the writing. And so I'm keeping those because I really enjoyed his artistic vision with it, and he has amazing chops. I don't want to get into every Godzilla comic book right now. IDW, I think, is doing an awesome job producing a lot. But I do enjoy some of the crossovers, the Marvel crossovers they did right here. And then back here we have the DC crossovers, and they have a very different flavor. This is kind of a nostalgia itch because it connects me back with watching Godzilla movies on Saturday afternoons with my dad. The other one, and I thought this was interesting, as I was organizing my collection, I found that I had been collecting a particular niche comic. It's not a PSA comic so much, but it's definitely a public advocacy comic where some NGO, it could be the government, it could be some other organization, is trying to communicate with the public about a particular social issue, and either they're advocating some action or they're trying to educate. Okay, and as I was developing this, as I was looking at these and reflecting on what I really wanted to collect, because I think it is I'm going to use the word historical. It's a wonderful historical snapshot of a time period. I wanted to make sure that it would be something collectible. So I'm looking at individual comics and that it stands on its own. So right here we have an Avengers comic, Avengers Everyday Heroes. This came out, you can see right down here, 2022, and this is connected to the pandemic. If you take out that mission statement, that mission of communicating about the pandemic and about what the medical industry is doing and about getting vaccinated, this comic would not exist. And that's what I'm looking at. I want a comic that exists because of the mission. Without that, it wouldn't be a thing. I want it to be individual issues rather than pamphlets or something inside another comic. And I'm kind of looking a little deeper in this. I'll have another video coming out, I think, next week that'll explore this a little bit more. Thanks for taking the time this morning. Listen to me ramble on about comic books. I really appreciate it. I hope my own reflective path looking at Old Comic Book Day and how I'm curating my sources is valuable to anybody else. If it is, please do leave a comment. I appreciate anybody that, if you could hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell up in the corner when I post new content. Thank you for tuning in this morning. And don't forget, life really is so much better when we read more comics.